What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. I'm Joe Nissom, and as always, I'm here with my main man, Mr. David Fuchs, who's very patriotic today and inside of Madison Square Garden. Incredible, incredible. Coming to us live from 33rd Street.
I'll say you like the hat. I didn't know you were gonna recognize the hat, but yeah.
No, very American. I feel a little sense of pride too.
Oh yeah. Oh
Fourth of
yeah.
July is soon. Oh, I love that.
Exactly.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about the test, David. Let's talk a little bit about the game plan for the 170 questions. And this is kind of an interesting topic because you and I disagree on this management of the test.
Well, on a few things,
On a few
not
things,
everything.
not everything, but this is, and to David's point, as what we were saying right before we get on camera, is um, this is something that as a candidate you need to explore for yourself. Now, you could take advice in one way, you could take advice in another way, or you can find your own way of doing it. The key here is actually having a game plan for your 170 questions. And this is something that I would suggest that you, again, make sure you have your game day plan. It can be a version of what we give you today, it could be a picking and choosing what you like from either. Um, but David, tell everybody, like, when they sit down, okay, now I'm in the Prometric Center, I've gone through my check-in process, I'm now seated, and you kind of, your heart starts pounding, and because you see the start button and you're like, okay, it's go time. Tell me a little bit about the way that you attack the exam, and what you tell other people on how they should attack an exam.
Yeah, I mean, there's like multiple ways that you can do it, and like you said, I think that everybody kind of needs to just strategize for what's going to work best for them, because there's not like one size fits all, do this, do that, and you're going to be successful. So, any piece of advice that you get, try it on the mocks is the first thing and see if it works. And then take that into, actual exam day. But I mean, there's like a number of things. I mean, the first thing, and I know that you don't agree with this, and obviously that's fine, but I always saved the case studies for the end of the section. And if I recall correctly, there are two case studies per half, correct?
Uh, I I don't know if that format has changed, but typically we're dealing with some people were coming out and saying that there's one big case study on the exam.
Okay, all right. Well, when I took it, there was two. There was one in the first half, so the first 85 questions, and then there was another in the second half on the second 85 questions. And I always saved it for last. And that was something that I did. And you know what? Here's why I did that. First time I took the exam, literally I pressed start on to open up the exam at Prometric, and the first thing was a case study. And it was whatever. You read all the information, which takes, a good 3 to 5 minutes, and then there's 10-ish questions on the case study. That could alone can take like 10 to 15 minutes just to get those 10 questions done. And I pretty much almost ran out of time on that section. So that was one mistake that like I personally made, that the next time I took it, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to finish everything that I need to finish, get everything done, and save the case study for the end. This way you can, you're going to finish the other 30 to 35 questions that are not part of the case study. And you got that done, and you can always go to the case study at the end with whatever time you have left. That was my rationale, and that worked for me. I know you don't necessarily agree with that.
No, I don't, because my take on exam day strategy is keep it simple, like the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, or silly. We don't put down, no put downs, right? And I believe that the question comes up and you answer it. A question comes up and you answer it. I don't like the back and forth because I think it just causes too much panic and anxiety at the end, where Now it's kind of sitting on the top of your brain that I got to come back to this. That's why I'm a big proponent of answer every question. And then at the end, if you have time, come back and you can always change your answer, which I don't really like anyway. And I think we'll be covering that in a little bit. But I see the question, I answer the question. I see the question, I answer the question. And that way, every question is answered, because if it's taking you longer than 2 or 3 minutes to answer a question, you're probably not going to get that question right anyway, unless you're working through like a big retirement planning, education planning type of question that takes 2 to 4 minutes to do the calculation. But if you're spending 6 or 7 minutes on a question, it's not worth it, because that question is worth as much as any other question. So
Yeah.
you're better off kind of limiting yourself at 2.5 minutes per question, and making sure that you have enough time for other questions that you have a legitimate shot of answering, versus
Yeah.
dumping all that time and then coming to the end with questions that you're familiar with, that you know, that you understand, and doing that. And then when you have time left over, you can come back to it, but you're never running into the situation where I didn't answer X question.
Oh, well, 100%. But that's kind of what I'm saying. Like the state or the case studies can, first of all, I always think and thought that the case studies were definitely harder than just your every, regular questions. And for me, if you take longer than you think or than you need on the case study, now all of a sudden you're rushing on everything else. I'd rather get everything else done, do the other 30, 35 questions that are probably easier, a little bit more low-hanging fruit, and make sure that you're taking your time on those. And then saving the case study for the end. If you run out of time, obviously, answer all of them. If you have to guess, you have to guess. But I'd rather run out of time. And this was my rationale. This is not everything, but I'd rather run out of time guessing on the case study than not answering some of the other questions that I personally think are easier and more low-hanging fruit and easier points to get on the exam.
I mean, and again, it works if you can handle that. Like if you know that skipping questions is gonna nerve wreck you, then don't do it.
Right.
Right. And I am the type of person that I am, when I'm on an exam, I want to be nice and neat and organized. I'm a bit OCD in that way, where it's like I like things organized into where they should be. So like it's more nerve-wracking for me to say have 7 questions, kind of because it just sits there and it bothers me personally. Like it
Mhm.
bothers me. It's like, but I'm that type of person all day, every day, where something's sitting on my checklist for longer than a day or two, then it just starts to irk me and I have to get it done. So
So
go ahead.
well, I was saying, what would you do if there's a extremely tough question, like you're not going to get it the first time going through reading it. You may have to read it multiple times. You don't really understand like what the answers are even saying. Would you sit there and take 3 to 5 minutes to try and maybe get that right, or would you just move on, get everything else, and come back to it at the end?
No, I mean if I'm in that situation, I'm gonna put in B and move on, or
Okay.
C and move on. And that way, like I can come back at the end where I legitimately have 15 or 20 minutes. Like
And that's
I'm literally kind of keeping my eye on time, and I'm not sitting there doing that every question. I'm kind of doing it in tens or fives. I'm saying, okay, at the 10-minute mark or at the 10 question mark, I should be at 20 minutes.
yeah.
And for most of the exam, a lot of the questions are kind of 30 seconds to a minute. So I know a lot of people are coming out, and most students are coming out saying, I really had no issue with time whatsoever. I had so much time left over. So for most people, the time domain is not really that big of an issue. So if you have 43 questions with an hour and a half that you're getting done, most people are not having trouble getting done 43 questions in the hour and a half. So, if you're finishing 40 questions in about an hour 15, you still have 15 minutes then to go back and sit down and decipher, and you can spend 5 or 10 minutes on that question or that group of questions, and that's absolutely fine. But again, my sense is pick it up, put it down, keep it really simple, no flashy exam techniques, because a lot of times you are setting up a technique that really adds no value. And so now you're going through and you're doing these flashy techniques, and then you come to the end of it and you're like, I literally could have answered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row and nothing would have changed it with my score. So I'm a proponent of don't add, the exam is hard enough. Don't add any extra stress. You can always come back at the end. Just keep it as simple as possible. Now, again, is what you're saying wrong? No, absolutely not. It works. That's an absolutely fine way to do it. You just have to be your personality has to allow for that, and you have to have time management skills that are proven to that. And if you know that your time management is kind of wonky, then it's I see the question, I answer the question. I think if
Yeah.
you're all your mocks, you're getting through 40, 45 questions within an hour, then it's an absolutely fine way to do it. Um, However, if you're already running up against time management, I wouldn't do it. So, two different techniques for managing your exam day. Um, Again, neither better than the other, but just two really kind of different ways. There's David's way, there's my way. Like we said at the beginning here, most importantly, pick one and stick to it and test it
Mhm.
out on your mocks, because don't do this on exam day. Don't wait until exam day and go, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Test that on your mocks, and you should be taking, in my opinion, a minimum of 2 mocks on the exam anyway. So if you want to try it on one mock one way, you want to try it another mock another way, then you kind of put yourself in a position where you know what's going to work best for you. So,
Yeah.
but you have to test it out. You can't guess your way through that process. You have to kind of put in the time and effort in the mocks to say, okay, this was better for my time. And again, even if one ends up being a little bit more time consuming, but you're more relaxed, you have your answer. The one
For
that
sure.
ultimately keeps you calmer and moving more methodically is the one that you ideally want to choose.
Mhm.
So, as
Mhm.
always, questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to David or myself. We'll see you guys soon.